This is section 8.2 on the trig or polar form of complex numbers. The complex plane and vector representation. To graph a complex number, such as 2 minus 3i, we modify the coordinate system by calling the horizontal axis the real axis, and the vertical axis is the imaginary axis. Then, complex numbers can be graphed on this complex plane. Each complex number a plus bi determines a unique position vector with the initial point at 0, 0 and terminal point at AB. The complex number 2 minus 3i can be described on a complex plane using a vector. You see how the initial point is at 0, 0, and then the terminal point is at 2, negative 3. See, A is 2 and B is negative 3. The geometric representation is the reason that a plus bi is called the rectangular form. It's on the rectangular axis of a complex number. Rectangular form is also known as standard form. Graphically, the sum of two complex numbers represented by the vector that is the resultant of the vectors corresponding to the two numbers. When you're adding two complex numbers together, you're just adding the real parts and the imaginary parts. It's the same idea as when you're adding two vectors together. You're adding the first components and the second components. Let's go on to page 8-9. The trig form is also known as the polar form. And the relationships among x, y, r, and theta, and this should look really familiar to you. I can draw this. I'll just put it in the first quadrant. If we have a complex number x plus yi, I'll denote that with this vector, so x plus yi. Then do you see if we make a right triangle, we have x, so horizontal component, y is a vertical component, and then to describe the hypotenuse, I'll put r. Do you see how if this is theta, cosine of theta is equal to x over r? If we solve for x, then we get this formula. Sine of theta is equal to y over r. Solving for y, we get this formula here. We know that r is equal to the square root of x squared plus y squared by the Pythagorean theorem. And then tangent of theta is equal to y over x. So hopefully these formulas look really familiar to you because we've used them so much. The next part, the trig form, or trigonometric form, which is also known as the polar form of a complex number. X plus yi is written like this. Now this is the same thing as if r was being multiplied by each of the parts. If r was multiplied by the real part and then plus r times the second part, but this is just how we write it in the trig form. The expression cosine theta plus I sine theta is sometimes abbreviated CIS of theta. Using this notation, r is equal to cosine theta plus I sine theta, we'll just put an r in front of that. So r CIS theta. You'll be converting between rectangular and trig form. Here are some steps to converting. Sketch a graph of the number x plus yi in the complex plane. Step 2, find r by using the equation r is equal to the square root of x squared plus y squared. And then step 3, find theta by using tangent of theta is equal to y over x.